Hello. Good
Oh,
morning. How are you, Mandy?
I'm doing really good. Feel a little bit nervous, but I'm doing good.
Good, good. I was just going to ask you that. I'm like, that's always the thing when people start and come in for the first time. I'm like, are you excited, nervous?
Combination.
Sometimes both, a little bit of both. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm Jill. Hi, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to finally meet you too.
Yeah. Have you done video conferencing like this before, or is this your first time?
It's my first time doing it for financial stuff, but I have done it a little bit.
Okay, good. So it's not totally weird and awkward for you, huh?
No, no, it's fine.
Okay, good, good. So, yeah, I guess before we like really dive into everything, I just like to get to know you a little bit, to know what's been going on. I guess tell me in your own words, like what it is that brought you here today, like what's happening financially that we really want to try to overcome.
So I don't feel confident in the way that I'm managing my finances, and I kind of feel like I feel like I make okay money, but I'm just not really sure where exactly it's going, and I get a lot of anxiety around my money. And I
Okay.
definitely want to feel a lot less stress. And sometimes I feel like I've tried budgeting, it kind of hasn't really. It's kind of worked, but it hasn't, and I feel like it just feels like everything's kind of all over the place, even when I'm trying to control it.
Sure. What have you done? You said you've tried some budgeting before. Like what have you done specifically to try budgeting in the past that didn't work?
So I have wrote down what my income was and that what my expenses were for that month. And I tried to do that and it didn't really seem to work that well. I used Mint a small amount a couple years back. And I just didn't find that it really worked that well.
Okay. Yeah. Those are pretty common things that I hear. So it's not a surprise to me to hear that that didn't work super well, but we're going to kind of look at some different ways that we can implement starting today to look at your expenses and finances a little bit different that I think you're going to really like. Um, if you could say, like, what are the top three things that you would love for us to achieve today? Like during this session, what would be like the best thing that you could get out of it today?
Really learning how to budget better would be really, really good. Um, Feeling, I guess, just less anxious around my money, and just feeling confident in the decisions that I'm making, and just feeling like I guess I have a plan going forward that I know what I need to do.
Okay. So learn a plan for budgeting, have that good strategy in place, and to begin to feel a little bit less stressed about what's going on because you have more clarity. Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I think that we can achieve that today. So awesome. Good news, right?
Wonderful.
So I'll kind of just go over, what we're going to cover today, just so you know what we're going to go through. It is 2 hours. The time is going to fly. So I know it feels like a long time when we say 2 hours, but trust me, it goes very quickly. What we are going to look at is first, we're just going to talk a little bit about budgeting, why maybe some of the things that you did in the past didn't really work that well, and then start to put some framework into place about how to start to break down your expenses and look at them a little bit differently. So we'll kind of go over our method and our strategy, kind of the general criteria that you're going to follow for dealing with different expenses. Then we're going to dive into looking right at your numbers. So very specifically, everything that you have going on in your world, what's been happening, and then what changes or tweaks we can make and put that plan in place so that like right away when you leave here, some steps that you can do immediately to start getting better control. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So give me just a second to get that pulled up.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So we'll start here. Hi, I'm Jill. I do always like to start by just introducing myself a little bit because I know you don't know me yet. This is a picture of me and my husband, Matt, and our two little boys, Tyler and Zeke. They are actually much bigger than this now. I was told recently by someone that I need new family pictures because it's like 2 years old and they're a lot taller. But my story, and I guess how I got into financial coaching, is that 5 years ago, I actually was a client of Physical Fitness. So it's pretty cool to have kind of turn the tables, but I definitely understand what it's like to be be in your shoes and to be sitting on your side of the table, because I was there once. Kind of like what you mentioned, my husband and I, we had tried budgeting. We tried kind of what you said, like writing down the list of income minus expenses, tried doing Mint, tried doing the envelope system, tried doing like all sorts of different things along the way, and just really never found anything that stuck for us. So when I hear you say that you tried that and it didn't really work, I get that. I totally can relate, because I have been down that road too. It didn't work very well. We wound up, we got married. A lot of those expenses from the wedding and honeymoon wound up going onto a credit card. We both had really good professional jobs. We were making good money. So we were like, no big deal. We're going to be able to pay for it. It'll be fine. Got our first house, got pregnant on our honeymoon. So lots of big expenses all coming in right away. And we were still managing everything, but we had more debt than what we were comfortable with. And then wound up with a second child. And shortly after that, when you're carrying that amount of debt, it just takes only one thing to kind of see it really spiral out of control. And that's really exactly what happened for us. My husband wound up losing his job. We were without his income for about 6 months. And in that period of time, what was like already a higher amount of debt than we wanted really spiraled out of control to being behind on all payments, not being able to buy groceries, stressing about putting gas in the car. And I will still always remember the day driving down the street, and I had just hung up the phone with my husband telling him that he can't put gas in the car because we had another 3 days until payday and we were about to overdraft. And I broke down crying, called one of my best friends and said, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to file bankruptcy. We're maybe going to get divorced. We don't know where we're going to go from here. And she was the one that wound up saying, I have someone that I need you to talk to. And it was Fiscal Fitness. And so for us, we booked the first session on a credit card because we didn't have the money to pay for it. Super, super scary. I know that it's like a huge leap of faith to put your, trust in someone else when you're already feeling stressed about finances, that they're going to be able to help you. And, for us, it was kind of the first moment that we really had hope, and that we had, the belief that we were actually going to be able to do something and turn things around. And very quickly after we started implementing the things that we learned, we saw our debt going down. Our savings was increasing. Within a year and a half, all of the debt was gone. And it just became something that I was like so excited about. I was like jumping from the rooftops, telling everyone like, oh my gosh, you need to like learn how to budget. It's so fun. Like everyone thought I was crazy. But it truly was just such a life-changing thing for us to learn how to manage our finances and feel really confident around them, that I knew that this was absolutely something I had to help other people with, So I'm super excited that you're here. I can't wait to like really dive into it with you, to help you to start to feel that confidence and be like ready to jump from the rooftops because you're so excited about your budget. And doesn't that sound wonderful?
It does. I hope that I can get to that point.
Yay. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, but you can get there. I promise you can get there. I truly believe everyone can learn it. So we are going to dive right into starting with looking at kind of the top challenges that I typically see when people come in. So really, I see 3 very common money challenges. And you tell me if these are things that you feel like you can relate to. So the first one is that people will tell me they have an inability to save money, or they're just not saving as much or as quickly as they want. What do you think about that one?
Yep, definitely. And a lot of dipping into the, taking money and putting into a savings account, but then always dipping in and out. And then it seems like the savings account is never really actually increasing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's exactly what I see happening too. So super common challenge. The second one is that people will come in and they tell me that they're in debt and they can't seem to get out, or they can't seem to stay out. So maybe they'll pay off the debt, but then they have to turn right back around and put something back on the credit card again. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I have credit card debt and then I pay it off and I have credit card debt again. And it's like almost like it just keeps going in a cycle, and I just don't know how to get out of the cycle.
Okay. Yep. we're going to put a plan in place for you today. So you just hold your horses, but we're going to, we're going to get that one addressed too. And then the third thing that people will tell me is that they overspend and they can't stick to a budget, or they just don't even really know where to begin with doing a budget. And I think you kind of already mentioned that one too, right?
Yeah, and it almost seems like when I feel like I'm failing at my budget, then all of a sudden you just kind of give up altogether because you feel like you're trying and you're not getting anywhere. So you're like, well, I might as well just spend it anyways.
Right. Yeah. What's the point, right? If you're putting all that work into it and you're never seeing any progress, it gets really like very defeating and easy to just say, forget it. So these are definitely the three things that I most commonly see. And so they all actually are related to one bigger problem. And that bigger problem is that we just can't see our money very clearly, right? Like we have so many electronic transactions happening anymore. Like all of our checks come in, they're auto deposited, our bills are being drafted, we are swiping the debit card, and seeing the timing and the impact of the financial choices that we make from day to day is very, very challenging to see how it plays into the big picture overall, right? So it's kind of like looking at this crazy biomedical engineering flow chart and being like, I don't know, it's like one thing here and then there and then there, and it's like really hard to make sense of. And I truly believe that if we can solve that problem of making it more clear to see what's happening with our money, we can actually solve all three of those other problems. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So that's what we're going to work on. So I want to talk just a little bit about like a few of the things that are, adding to some of that stress or adding to some of that like unclarity around what's happening with your money. And that's kind of some of these big fluctuations that happen financially for us. So the first one is the random expenses. So this big wavy line kind of represents like down at the bottom, nothing happens, and up at the top, we get hit by one of these whammies. That's what I call them. So a car repair, a home repair, going clothes shopping, buying a bunch of gifts around the holidays, going on vacation. So we have some months where none of that happens and other months where one or two or three of those things happen. And it kind of is this big up and down roller coaster of like no extra expenses. And then bam, you get hit with a really huge one, right? So those are the ones that really can rock our world when it comes to finances. The second thing is our day-to-day stuff. So kind of just like all of the little nickel and dime things that we do that we're swiping the debit card for. So buying groceries, going out to eat, grabbing coffee, maybe going to happy hour, like just all of those little things that happen from day to day. They tend to be an area where we focus a lot on because we don't really know from one day to the next how much we're going to spend, right? Like we can't say at the beginning of the month, I'm going to spend $30 every single day and it's going to be consistent all month long. Like some days we might spend $0 and other days we might grab a coffee in the morning, go out to lunch and have to get groceries at night and wind up spending $400, right? So it tends to be an area that we focus a lot on or that we stress a lot about because it's happening so frequently and it's so unpredictable. Okay. Mm-hmm. The third thing is a fluctuation in income. So I know you said that you are paid every other week, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So twice a year, you have a month that you get a third paycheck. So that would be like this extra spike in income when it comes in where you kind of are like, woohoo, the third paycheck. We always look forward to that, right? Mm-hmm. Or like if you get a tax return or you get a bonus or something like that happens once a year, you might have an extra spike in income. So these things are great. Like we always want to have that extra income that comes in, but this is what I typically will see happen is that the spike in income comes, maybe it's the third paycheck of the month. And you're like, whew, I finally have breathing room. I've got some extra money. I can throw some of that at my credit card because I want to get that paid off now. And you go ahead and do that and feel like on top of the world, super happy. You finally got ahead. And the next month the car breaks down or two or three of those big whammies hit you. And then it's like, oh, now I have to put it right back on the credit card. And it feels so super defeating that you kind of, like you said, like you just want to give up. Does that sound familiar?
Exactly. It sounds like you're saying my life story.
I promise I haven't been spying on you. But this is, yeah, I mean, you're not alone. So if you have experienced this, believe me, it's something that so many people are challenged with. It's happening all the time. And what we really want to try to do, and what we're going to start to put in place today during this session, is that we want to create a plan where we can take this blue and purple line and we can make it like this. We want to flatline it so that when those spikes in income come, when you do get the third paycheck in the month or the bonus or tax return or whatever that extra income is, you can actually make progress with it every single time, right? Like we don't have to worry about being hit on the backside by one of these big whammies, because we've already taken a plan and put it into place for those, so that it is something that's predictable and not going to rock our world. Okay. So does that sound good?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna get headed in that direction. So I know at the beginning you said you've tried budgeting. I imagine from what you described, it was something that looked kind of similar to this. Is that right?
Yep.
So income minus expenses. We hope there's something there at the end of the month, and then the end of the month comes and you're like, nothing actually looked like this. Is that about how it went?
Yeah, it's like the thing, two things don't match up, and then you're like, well, it's not working, so what's the point in putting all this effort into it?
Right. Yeah. And the problem with this is like, this is the traditional budget. Like if you Google it, you're going to find like 20 million examples that look all exactly like this. And they just don't work. Like they probably, for 80% of people, they don't work. And I think the 20% who say it does work are lying, or they're doing something else. So like life just doesn't work like this, right? We don't get all of our income on one day. We don't pay all of the expenses the next day. And then like nothing happens for the rest of the month. Like it just doesn't take into account the real timing and flow of life. And we need something that actually helps us along the way and shows us what we're doing from day to day, not like this snapshot, right? Mm-hmm. So I always joke that like looking or using a budget like that is basically like looking at a map and saying, we're right here. Like, okay, great. Here's Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. We are right here on the map. It's wonderful to know where we are, but what we actually want to know is like, how do we get from point A to point B? Right? We want to use a map to show us the way. And that's what our budget really should be, is something that takes us down the road to where we want to get to, right? Mm-hmm. So more like this. Like we want to go from fiscal fitness to Wall Street. There's multiple different routes, right? Like it's only showing 2, but there's probably 1,000 different ways that we could get to Wall Street. We want to know if there's a detour. We want to know if there's, a problem along the way. We want to know the fastest route, or we might want to know the scenic route that's going to stop us by to see family, right? But I love to equate this to budgeting, because this is exactly how it should be with your money, right? Like we're going to show you and give you the roadmap on how to get from point A to point B, but there's a million different ways to get there. There's not one way that's like the only way. There might be one way that's the fastest way. Like some people are like, I just want to get out of debt. I'm okay with eating ramen and rice and beans every day. I'm not going to buy any new clothes. I'm never going to travel. And they're like laser focused on getting out of debt. Then there's other people who are like, I would die if I had to live like that. I can't do that. I have to be able to, see my family and be able to go shopping every now and again, or whatever those different things are. That doesn't mean that way is wrong though, right? That still is going to get them there. It just might take a little bit longer, and that's totally fine. So what we really want to do today is find the way that's going to take you where you want to go, that is right for your life and the way that you want to live it, okay? All right, so we are going to dive into looking at the different ways to handle your expenses. So if you're taking notes, this is definitely the time that you want to start taking notes. And we are going to just get started. All right. So we really break expenses into 3 different categories. So the first one being the recurring expenses. So these are all of the bills that happen every single month. I call it the no surprises category, because you always know they're coming. So it's things like your rent or mortgage, your car payment, insurance, cell phone bill, your cable or internet, like all of those utilities and just different things that come every single month like clockwork. They have a set due date every month, so it's not a surprise when they show up. So we're going to handle all of those together in one certain way, okay?
Okay.
The second category is going to be the day-to-day spending. So this is all of the things that you're like swiping your debit card for. So groceries, eating out, getting coffee, miscellaneous household things, maybe pet food, kind of just all of the little nickel and dime things that happen. We're going to handle those in another way. And then the third category is the non-recurring or random expenses. So those were the big whammies that I talked about earlier. So car repairs, home repairs, vacation, travel, gifts, like all of those bigger expenses in life, we're going to handle those in one way also. Okay. All right. So let's start with the fixed and recurring bills. Tell me right now, what are you doing when it comes to your fixed bills every month? Like, how are you tracking them? How are they being paid?
So a lot of them are coming out on auto pay. They automatically come out. And I do have them like written down in how I was trying to budget it. And then the other ones that don't come out, most of mine are on auto, but I guess any that aren't, then I pay them, I guess, by my credit card or, yeah, mostly just by my credit card.
Okay. You said that you have some that are written down. Is it written down by date, or like how do you track them, or are they just like in a notebook where you try to check them off? Like, what are you doing with them where they're written down?
They're just written down on like a Word doc on my computer, and they're not in any specific order. I just have the ones that are coming out that I think this month.
Okay, so you update it every month?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I update it every month, but it still doesn't feel like I'm doing a great job of it. Like, I'm trying to update it every month, but it's always like there's some that you just kind of forget and don't realize that they go in that month. And
okay. Yeah. And then, so I know you said most are on auto pay, and then there's some that are paid by credit card. And what is your trigger for paying the ones that aren't on auto pay? Like, is it when you get the email or you get the bill in the mail? Like, what is your reminder for getting those paid?
Yeah, I'm really good about paying them when they're due. It's just, yeah, whenever I get the notification, then I pay it. Like, I don't miss making the payments. I'm organized in that aspect.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like right now you're already doing a lot of things that are like really so close to correct. So, I mean, you're not like that far off the mark at all. So we're just going to kind of put some things into place to kind of fine tune what you're doing, to maybe simplify it a little bit and make sure that you feel a little bit more confident about what's happening every single month. Okay. So I love that you already have a list of all of the bills. The one thing that I would say to change with that is to list them out by the due date. So like list the 1st through the 30th of every single month and list out the bills in the order that they come according to the date, and then have the amount with it also. What we really want to do is have it so easy for you to be able to glance at the bills on that list, and you can say my payday is on the 10th, and I can easily see between the 10th and the 24th, these are all the bills that would fall into that time frame. So like you wouldn't necessarily have to even be updating that list ever after you get it down the first time, right? Because the only thing changing is your payday. So we want it to be like so easy for you just to glance at it and say, these are all the ones that fall underneath this paycheck. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's like such a super simple step, so that oftentimes people don't even think about it, but it truly can help so much just to like really make it very streamlined and easy to see what's going on. So the second thing that I would encourage you to do is to actually switch things off of auto pay and put them onto bill pay through your bank. Have you used the bill pay function before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So I want to explain kind of what the difference is between auto pay and bill pay. So right now it sounds like you've got everything where it's drafting from the different companies, right? Like they have your debit card or credit card and they're billing to that. Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So
or I guess a couple things come out of my account automatically, like not off my credit card, but right out of my checking account.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's what we would actually prefer, is that it's coming out of your account. So using the bill pay function through your bank is essentially that. Like you are setting everything up for yourself within the bank so that you can see everything and you can set the dates that everything will be paid. So it makes it a lot easier as far as like managing and tracking. I know that you mentioned at the beginning, like kind of that stress and overwhelm with just managing finances. And part of that happens because we're always like waiting on these auto pays and payments to draft from us. And it's like, we're almost waiting for the shoe to drop, or like, we're always looking at the bank account and like, did that draft? Did that come out? And it takes a lot of mental energy to actually track all of that and keep up with it. So what we want to do is try to simplify it so that you really are only thinking about bills twice a month. We want it to be when you get paid on payday, that's kind of like your mental trigger, like the check's coming in, the bills get paid. And so I want you to have it all set up through bill pay through your own bank so that you can look at your list. You can see exactly which bills are coming out with each paycheck, right? And then you can set it up through bill pay so that they will all draft right when your check comes in.
Okay.
Okay. So
would that mean that I change everything so it comes out right after I have got my paycheck? So I would be changing the dates?
Yep, exactly. So I would say don't wait until the due date necessarily. You want it to be like right when your check comes in. So every month you will have to hop in and just like update the dates or change the amount that you're paying. Like if your electric bill is changing, obviously from month to month, you'll go in and update the amount. But it really, once you get bill pay set up, like you could probably set up the entire month within 10 minutes. So it's super, super fast and easy once they're all added into your account, just to kind of make the updates of what day you want it to draft and change the amounts on it.
Okay, and then how long after my paycheck do you suggest me to do that? And do you suggest them all to be on that same day then?
Yeah, I would have all of them draft on the same day. So like say that you get paid on the 10th, you would look and say, okay, these are all the bills that are due between now and maybe the 26th or whatever. Go a little bit beyond the next paycheck, right? Just so that there's not going to be any late payments, but make sure that they're all there. Set them all up. They can draft on the same day that your check comes in, or if you're more comfortable, like do it the day after your check comes in, just to make sure that it's deposited. Like, if it falls over a weekend or a holiday or whatever, you can give yourself a little bit of extra time. But yeah, I mean, makes it super, super simple so that you always know check comes in, bills are paid, and it's like everything's already done all right at once. So you don't have to think about it for another 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just wasn't sure of the timing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I always kind of warn people, I'm like, when you are getting bill pay set up, like just know to like spend an hour or two, just block it out of your time in your calendar. Cause it does take a little bit of time initially, just getting everything uploaded and like added into your bank. So plan it to be a little bit of an investment up front, but once it's in there, it is like super, super streamlined, very, very easy going forward. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So the next category that we want to talk about is the day-to-day spending. And this one is, like we said, all the groceries, eating out, coffees, miscellaneous household things, stuff like that. And this category, I really, really recommend using cash for. Have you used cash in the past?
Oh, not very much.
Does the word make you cringe or want to cry or run out the door?
A little bit. Yeah, it's just so easy to use your debit card or your credit card. And yeah. So this is always the one that everyone's like, no, you didn't say the word. So just bear with me. I really, really encourage you to give it a try for at least a little while. And so I want to explain kind of how this is going to work, because a lot of people have like maybe tried using cash or been like you, and it's like, I don't even want to do it. It sounds super inconvenient and I don't want to go there. And really, when you have like some good structure in place and kind of understand how to use it a little bit differently, it actually is super, super simple and streamlined. So what we really want to do, because like you said, most times in life, this is an area where we are like swiping the debit card or swiping the credit card because it seems really convenient and easy. And we really have like no concept of how much we're spending over the course of the month when we do that, right? Like, could you guess from one month to the next? Like, do you think that they're always consistent? No, definitely not.
Yeah. And what we really want to do is to actually turn this area of life into a fixed bill like the other ones. We want to make it so that it's super dependable, always consistent. We know from month to month exactly how much is going to be spent in that area. And the number one way that we can do that and control it is by using cash, because we can just take that certain set amount out every single payday and it's always consistent. So just like the check comes in, we pay the bills and we take out cash and it's always the same amount. So it's just like another recurring bill again. And so it makes it super consistent. Okay. So kind of the reasons that I encourage doing this is, one, when we are actually spending money, like spending cash, we're a lot more like cognizant of what's happening, right? We actually pay a lot more attention to it when we see the amount of money in our wallet getting less and less and less, right? Mm-hmm. So they actually have done like all sorts of studies saying that people spend like 12 to 20% more when they're swiping their debit card or credit card. So it's definitely a way to like start putting control on it. And I even know like a few months ago, I had forgotten to go get my cash. And I was like, I just have to run to the grocery store, grab a few things. I'm going to spend $60. I went in, got my stuff, got to the cash register, and I had spent $79. I was like, like even for someone who has been doing this for years and like should be totally, always on lockdown and knowing exactly what I'm spending. Like when the cash was gone, it was just so easy to spend more than what I planned on. And I think that's just what happens with everyone, right? So imagine if like every time you ran into the store, you're spending 10 or 20 or $30 more, it adds up to a lot, right? So kind of this accidental spending starts to happen. So what we really want is it to be very tangible for you to be able to like always have a consistent amount. And, you don't have to like nickel and dime it. You don't have to worry about where every single penny goes. So like, that's what some people will think of when they hear use cash. They think like, I need a certain amount for eating out and I need a certain amount for groceries. And they try to like compartmentalize it too much or break it all up. And that really is just setting yourself up for failure. So we're going to find the amount for you that's going to work. And it's just cash for anything. Like some weeks you might eat out more. Some weeks you might cook at home more. It doesn't really matter. Just as long as you're sticking to the cash, you can use it for whatever you want.
Okay. Now, okay. I just have a couple questions.
Yeah.
One, what about like if it's something that I wouldn't buy in person because maybe it's cheaper to order off Amazon? And then also, I don't live in the big city. So sometimes when I go in for groceries, sometimes when I go into the city, it's that day costs me significantly more because I'm getting like all my groceries that day, all my errands. I'm trying to like think about how I would like plan out cash for that then when it's a big day like that versus just kind of if I was doing a little bit each day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's actually super normal. Like most people do, even in the city, have like one big shopping trip where like you might spend $400 and then the next week you just get like a few little things. So that's totally normal. I see that it works pretty consistently, and especially once you get into the flow of it, because you would take out cash and maybe one of those weeks you don't really spend that much, right? So you might not have the big grocery trip like you're talking about. You're just getting like a few miscellaneous things. If you have leftover or overflow cash, it doesn't mean you take out less at the next payday. You're still going to take out the same amount so that the next paycheck you might have more cash than what you normally would. So it actually really helps to kind of go with that ebb and flow that is very natural in life, where we do have weeks where we spend less, weeks where we spend more. And so this way it kind of like continues to flow with life that way. And the one other thing that I would say is like, if you tend to order a lot of things online, so I do have some clients that do like all Instacart delivery stuff, or everything is, from Amazon or whatever. The one alternative to using cash would be to open up a second checking account and have that be your spending account. So that is an alternative. And basically the way that would work is that you open a second account that you would move that same amount of money into that you would be taking out in cash. So let's say your number is $400. Instead of taking out $400 cash on payday, you would move $400 into your second checking account, which is your spending account. And that is the card that you use for all of your shopping for the day-to-day stuff.
Okay.
Does that sound like something that would work better for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think I guess I would just have to see like a combination depending on the times when I'm doing more stuff online or doing more stuff. I guess I would just have to just plan that out a little bit better, what I kind of see the next 2 weeks looking like.
Yeah, exactly. And it is like just a little bit of trial and error, to be honest. Like some people that I work with will have like a spending account and they use cash because they really like the cash when they're out and about, but they order some things online and want to have like some control over how much that is. So it is kind of finding that happy place for what works in your life, but those are definitely the best options. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, so then on to the third category, which is the non-recurring and random stuff, okay? So these are the big whammies that we talked about. So car repairs, home repairs, travel, clothing, personal grooming, maybe any like semi-annual or annual fees that you pay, things like that. The way that we really want to set those up is to actually open up savings accounts for each one of those categories. So what we want to do is, like, if you have a car repair fund, we want a separate savings account that's just for car repairs, and then another one that's just for clothing. What do you think of that?
It sounds like a lot of work, but I'm open to hear it, but it sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot initially, believe me, I understand, but I'll explain kind of how it works. So the two banks that I typically will recommend for clients is Capital One or Ally. I recommend them purely because they don't charge any fees. So you can open an unlimited amount of checking accounts. They don't have like a monthly maintenance fee on it. There's no minimum balance. They don't have like an auto deposit requirement or anything like that. I have seen some credit unions that also will offer that. So definitely, you can check around and see if there's other ones, but you definitely want to be looking for a bank that has unlimited savings accounts with zero fees. Okay.
Okay.
So what we want to do is create a set amount every single month that we actually put into each of those accounts, right? So like, for instance, a clothing fund, we would say every month we're putting $50 away for clothes, and you might not shop for clothes every single month, but when you do, you're going to have like a couple $100 sitting in a savings account that you can just use to go for that shopping trip. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is an example of a screenshot of actually my account, and they've completely changed the interface. So it's not a good example anymore because it doesn't look like this anymore, but it gives you an idea anyway of like what I mean by saying opening up a bunch of different savings accounts, right? So you would actually open individual ones, change the nickname on each of them. So like we have childcare and home renovations and pharmacy fees, clothing, business, emergency, investing, pet expenses, personal grooming. So yada, 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 right? The list goes on and on. And we're going to find the savings accounts for you, like the things that apply to your life. And you will open up an individual account for each one of them. So the reason that this is so great, and you even mentioned this towards the beginning, was like the challenge with saving, right? So you've got one savings account right now that we have some money in, but it sounds like it kind of gets dipped into for different things along the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we want is that your emergency account is truly, truly just for emergencies, because it feels really horrible every single time you have to dip in there, I bet.
Yeah, I don't like doing it, but it's like I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So this is what we want to do to kind of prevent all of that like really big negativity that comes when you have to reach into the emergency fund, because we know these big whammies in life are going to hit, and they're the thing that we really are never prepared for, right? But it's kind of to be expected that you're going to buy clothes, or you're going to have to repair the car every now and again, or you're probably going to travel. And so we are going to make sure that you're prepared for those things before they actually come, right? So initially, there's some work that goes into just getting the account set up, kind of like I said, with setting up bill pay, plan an hour or two, get all of your accounts set up. Once they're set up, though, you'll just link it with the current checking account that you already have. And once a month, you'll make a transfer into your savings accounts, and that's it. So it really takes like 10 minutes once a month. It's super, super simple once it's set up. What do you think?
It's a lot, but it sounds like it makes sense.
Okay, we'll go through it and I'll show you like exactly which accounts, and we'll even have like the set numbers for you. So it'll make a lot more sense and like not be quite so overwhelming. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what to figure out or what numbers are right for me. So we've got all of that for you. Okay.
Perfect.
So the great thing about doing this is that it always gives you a budget every time before you go shopping. So you can always just look at your savings accounts and say, how much do I have for gifts? I'm going to go Christmas shopping or shopping for birthday presents. How much is in that account? And so it really helps you to know, like, this is the right amount. I'm not going to overspend. I'm not going to like wind up, going negative in my account or being stressed this month because I already have that in savings. And it also just, even with like big expenses, like if you had a car repair that happened and it was a $600 bill, well, if you only have $500 in that savings account, it doesn't mean that it's not working, right? It's better to have $500 and only have to come up with $100 than to have to come up with all $600 at once. So we're really doing this to kind of smooth things out, streamline it. And this is actually a really great time to use credit cards. So I know right now we've got like one credit card for you that we're going to work on like trying to get paid off. But once it's paid off, like I'm definitely not anti-credit card, against people using them. I love the perks and bonuses that you can earn with them. So it's actually a great time to use them on these like whammy categories because you already have the money in savings. So if you charge it onto the card, you can just turn right around, transfer the money back into checking and pay it off. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now that we've kind of gone through those 3 different ways to handle expenses, this is what it looks like. Your paycheck comes in, you're going to pay all your bills, take out cash or transfer into that spending account, the second checking account. We're going to save for upcoming expenses. And then there should actually be some money left over that we really truly is like left over at this point. So I always call this like the extra money. And that's what we use to make some financial progress every month. Okay.
It'll be nice to have money left over.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. It feels really, really good because it's actually money that really is there. Because now it starts to look like this, where we have straight lines for the random expenses because they're consistent every month. We've locked in day-to-day spending. It's consistent every month. So now when we have those big spikes in income, that's when we can really, really make a lot of fast progress. Okay. So we are going to switch over and look at your expenses now, and let's kind of like start to dive into everything that you've got going on, and get this plan going. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So I know that in your questionnaire, it said that you and your husband kind of split expenses and things like that, right? So, and I know you've got like a few places on here where you say that your spouse is paying. So kind of explain what system the 2 of you have in place right now and what you guys are doing with your finances.
So we have our finances separate, and then what we do is I pay certain ones and then he pays certain ones. And that's kind of what we have done, that we have worked out amongst ourselves.
Okay. How did you decide who paid what?
It kind of just depended. His income fluctuated more and I made a little bit more than him. So that's why I took on some of the higher expenses than what he did.
Okay. All right. So as we go through, like some of these, I'll just ask you, you know, if he's contributing part of it or if it's all yours or whatever, because I think a lot of them are probably like mutual expenses. So sometimes it is nice to get both of you, you know, on the same page with what's happening financially. I don't know. Do you guys talk about finances frequently at home? Do you ever have conversations about what's happening with your money?
We kind of do. I'm definitely a lot more stressed out about it than he is. And, we kind of talk about it. It's definitely not great. It could be a lot better.
Okay.
But we kind of just do our own thing a little bit. Or I do more of the bill paying, I guess.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that might be valuable, like once we get all the way through this, you're going to kind of see how we have everything on here. And it might be a really good exercise just to have him also like fill in all of his numbers. And then the 2 of you sit down together so that you can really look at like where everything is going, how much is going into each of these savings accounts, because some of them may wind up being things that he should be funding. And then you fund some of them so that there is like a little bit more like a joint effort towards some of these things that are, you know, expenses that both of you would have part in. Okay. So let's see. So the mortgage, is this the full mortgage amount then that you're paying?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how much the house is worth?
I think it is worth around $275, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Just an estimate is fine, just to have an idea. Okay. And so then your husband pays insurance, home repairs. Was just this kind of like a rough estimate?
It was a very rough estimate.
Okay. Yeah. As long as you don't have any like repairs that you're aware of that need to be done right now, there's nothing big that's looming over your head.
No, not that we know of.
Okay. Okay. Then electricity, husband pays water, gas, propane, cell phones. Is this for both of your phones or is it split between the 2 of you?
We each pay our own. So he pays basically similar to what mine is.
Okay. Are they on separate plans or are they on the same plan?
They're on separate plans. His is on a plan because it's with his family with their work, and then I pay mine on my own.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Car payment, gas. Is this gas for both of you or just your gas?
That one is my gas.
Okay.
And that's also approximate too.
Okay, yeah, I know. Gas is one that's kind of all over the place, right? So it's like best guess and hope that it's close. So car repairs, would this just be for your own vehicle then?
Yeah, that's what I would think that mine would be.
Okay. Registration, insurance. Is the insurance just yours or is it yours and your husband's combined?
That one is just for my vehicle.
Okay. Do you have them both on the same policy or are they on separate policies?
They're on separate policies, just because the way that the insurance agency worked through, it's like each vehicle itself, if that makes sense. Like, they're not determined by any of the other ones.
I would check into it and see if you can get a discount if you put them on the same policy. A lot of times they'll have a multi-vehicle like discount when you combine them onto the same policy, because $120 for one vehicle seems really high to me. So I have a feeling that you could probably get both of them onto a policy for around the same price.
Okay.
So that could definitely save you guys some money. I'll just kind of put a note in over here.
And if we put them on the same policy, could we still pay separately for them?
You guys, yeah, I mean, you guys could split it. You guys could each, auto pay a certain percentage of it, I'm sure, to them every month. So whatever way you guys wanted to split it up, like you could pay 60 and he could pay 60 and you just both contribute to the bill.
Okay.
Are there some things that you guys do split down the middle, or is it just kind of like one totally pays the full thing on everything and they're out of your own individual accounts?
I guess it kind of just depends. Most of the stuff we split, and we pay out of our own, not split. We pay out of our own accounts for the most part. And then sometimes he'll, like, when it comes to like eating out and stuff, sometimes he'll pay more for that. And then I would buy the groceries and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But we don't really have a plan, I guess. It's, when it comes to the eating out, it kind of just depends.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely one area that I see when people do have their finances separate. It's like, who's going to pay? And it can kind of create a little bit of awkwardness almost when you go to have the conversation of like, who's picking up the bill sometimes. Yeah, because that's like the next one that we have here is groceries and just household expenses. So you're saying sometimes you think maybe he pays a little bit more on those in that category. Is this amount what you think you pay, or is it what you think that you guys pay as a family?
I think that's probably what I pay. And then when it comes to the toiletries household, it just depends, because maybe if he's in the city, he might pick up some stuff. So that's very, very approximate as well.
Yeah. One thing that maybe would work for you guys, like how we had talked about doing that spending account, is to figure out how much the two of you spend together on groceries and eating out, and that both of you contribute into that account. So you just use the debit card between the two of you for spending. That way there is like a little bit more consistency around that, because this could be an area where like you're winding up putting a bunch into that account, but you might not actually be spending, like needing to spend that much, or that, I don't know, keeping it separate can make it a little bit awkward. What do you think? Like, how has it been for you guys?
Like, obviously it's kind of works, but I don't know like about combining finances, because we have different incomes, and I'm not sure really if that's something, maybe having one account that we would both contribute some into, but we would still have our own separate account.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if it was just the spending account, which is sometimes like a nice place for people to kind of like dip their toes in when it comes to like seeing how things work if they combine something, is to just do it in this one area where it's like you have your spending account, and for your family's eating out and grocery needs, like you might each contribute a set amount every payday where you both have the same debit card and just say, we're going to commit that this is the account that we're using for all food, eating out, household stuff. And then you each have your own individual accounts for everything else still.
That sounds better if we just put kind of those expenses. I would have to talk to him and see what he thinks. But I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's a conversation for the two of you to kind of talk about and see if he's on the same page. I don't, obviously, since he's not here, I don't know like what his goals are financially and if he would be on board with doing something new, but it definitely can be one where, you know, it starts to get you both on the same page. It helps with communication around money too, when you both are like having something that you both have your eyes on all the time and you start to be able to have that dialogue about like, where are we at with things? Should we be going out to dinner? You know, it controls it for both of you a little bit. So it definitely does help. So you can start to kind of get ahead more financially.
Okay.
So let's see. So contributing to the IRA and then into a savings. This is your emergency savings that we were talking about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the credit card. So not the minimum, but what you've been paying. Do you have any idea what the minimum payment is?
I think it's around $50-ish, I think.
Okay. For the worksheet, I'm going to say 75 to be conservative if it is a little bit more, but let's work with just the minimum and then kind of see what we can do as far as putting extra towards it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So then this is probably your Netflix, internet. Gifts seems a little bit low to me. Tell me where you came up with your gifts number.
I really wasn't very sure with that one. I know at Christmas we spend more than we should, but yeah. Now that you say that, it does look low. I just wasn't even sure trying to come up with an estimate for that.
Yeah, it's definitely one that people are like, I have no idea how much I spend. And we usually spend a lot more than what we think we do. Which is why, again, I think the savings account works really, really well for a category like this, because gifts is like one of those areas in life where we will 100% spend as much as we allow ourselves, right? And if we don't have an allowance that we give ourselves, we'll just spend whatever. So it really does help to kind of put that criteria in mind when you're going shopping. $10 seems really, really low. How many people are you shopping for when you are buying gifts? Like think about the holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, like any of those things.
I'll just count quick. I guess about 7-ish people.
7 people around the holidays. And then do you buy Christmas or do you buy birthday gifts for all of those people also?
We don't really do birthday gifts.
Okay. So even if we just did 7 people at the holidays, like how much on average do you think you might spend on each of them?
I guess I would say $50, and then for a few of them it would be maybe more closer to the $100 mark or $75 mark.
Okay.
So I guess I would say 2 people at the
higher amount. Yeah.
5. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so like your husband, do you buy birthday presents for your husband?
Right now we're kind of not, just when we're trying to figure things out, but we would like to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I always think there's like lots of little miscellaneous gifts and things too that we oftentimes forget about. Like if we're buying something for, you know, people at work, or if we're invited to a holiday party and we need to show up with like a bottle of wine, or like just all of those like little things that are like tiny little gifts that you might bring and give to people along the way. So I always think it's good to at least estimate a little bit extra for those. Even if we just did the $450 that we're talking about for the holidays, that would be about $40 a month. So just for that. So I don't know, like if you want to do maybe 50 just to have something to start with. What do you think?
Yeah, that would probably be a lot more accurate.
Okay. Personal grooming. So every 6 months, is this including like getting your hair cut or things like that?
So the $50 every 6 months, that's getting the haircut. And
Okay.
then what I did was I kind of added in what I thought maybe makeup and kind of some of my facial products would cost too.
Okay. So you think about $80 a year for that stuff?
Yeah, that would sound, or I guess $100.
Okay, let's round up. Let's just say 20 maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Gym membership, education and training. Is this like an annual fee that you pay for something?
That's more so like little courses and stuff that I take here and there, or like kind of self-development stuff.
Okay. Okay. Eating out and lunches. Clothing. Clothing also seems a little bit low to me. Tell me about your clothes shopping. Like, obviously you're not someone that goes out regularly and buys a lot of clothes, but I'm thinking like one pair of jeans could cost, everything you have saved for the whole year, potentially.
I kind of typically go shopping like 2 bigger shopping trips a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it wouldn't cost me less than $300 when I went.
So maybe 600 a year then?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'd be 50. That sounds definitely much more realistic for one person. So yeah. Legal and tax filing, subscriptions for Costco, travel, spending. Spending would actually be green, wrong color. Okay, so as we go through here, just so that you know the color coding, the orange is for your savings accounts. So everything that we went through that has an orange box on it would be one that you would open your savings accounts for, title it with that amount, and this is the dollar amount that you would put into it every month, okay?
Okay.
And then green is going to be your cash, and let's just total up, we'll make that 20 because you can't like take out $15 from an ATM.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, oops, what did I do? 520 plus, let's see what else we have here. 300. So that's 800. Ooh, I did so good. I was using an example of $400 every pay period, and that's exactly what it would be for you. So, so $400 cash to last for 2 weeks, and I'll just kind of put a note in here. So take out cash or transfer to spending account. How does that number sound to you? $400 every pay period.
That sounds reasonable. And it sounds like it's more accurate than I probably would have took out maybe less, and that probably wouldn't have worked. So that sounds better. And I think it would help be more mindful with the groceries. I know at first I think it scares me a little bit too at the same time, thinking eating out and groceries and kind of those other expenses, but something I'm definitely willing to give a try.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, exactly what you said, where it's like, most people, when they hear me say like, we're going to use cash for it, they'll immediately go in their head and like, I'm only going to give myself like $100 or $200, or they'll try to like think of this really low dollar amount when they think about using cash for groceries and things. And it usually is too low. So people will start with it and then they get really, really frustrated because they're, feeling like they're broke all the time. They can't buy groceries. They need to like buy some toilet paper or a dishwasher detergent, and they can't get it because they don't have any money. And then they're like, forget it, this isn't working. And the reality is that they just didn't like start with a realistic number to begin with. So yeah, I think having a more realistic number and then like saying, I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to stick to it and see how it goes. Now, if you get in a month or two and you are like, oh my gosh, I have like $800 of extra cash, then clearly we're using too much, right? And on the other side, if you get in and like after the first week, you're like, oh my gosh, I only have $20 to last for the next week, like maybe you need to adjust the number and give yourself a little bit more. Okay, so like this is the starting point and it can always go up or down from here, but we want to kind of find that sweet spot where sometimes you might be like kind of making it stretch and other times you have a little bit of overflow, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's get down here to the bottom. So as we have everything right now, we are almost at break even. which is, you know, saying you're $22 in the negative, which is actually not too bad. It's not, we always like to see a more positive number, right? But breaking even and having all of these savings accounts that things are going to is actually a really beautiful thing, right?
Gives me a little bit of anxiety seeing that, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, let's see what we can do to make the number look a little bit better. We'll kind of like, I'm going to copy this and make a new sheet, and let's just go through it together and see if there are any things that we can do to kind of make some changes. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll label it with changes so that you know which one it is that we went through and made some updates to. So I would be curious, you know, with the things that you have listed down that your spouse is paying right now, it's just insurance and the water, and then obviously like his own vehicle. Do you think that there's any way that he can take some of these other bills and help with them? Because it appears that you're like pretty expense heavy on your portion without knowing his and his income. Obviously, like I don't know exactly where his are at, but is that a conversation that you think that you'd be able to have with him about things?
I guess we could see how it goes. Like he has his own debt as well that he's trying to pay off, and then he makes less money than what I do. So that's why we kind of set it up. So I was paying some of the more expenses, so it kind of seemed fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could see how it would go and see if there was some that maybe he would be able to take over. I'm just a little bit kind of scared to have that conversation as well too.
Yeah, I mean, it can be scary. And I think part of what, you know, when it can be scary is like when the numbers are very abstract and we try to just sit down and have a conversation around like, you know, I want you to take on more bills. So doing something like this where you actually have like the very concrete number, especially when you're talking to men, sometimes that visual of them being able to see it, like you can't argue with the numbers, right? The numbers aren't emotional. The numbers aren't lying. They just are what they are. And so sometimes it can be like a really effective tool for talking about finances together with your spouse, where they can see what the numbers are and like how making some different changes to things impacts the bottom line. So kind of how I had said earlier, like even you just doing this exact same exercise and saying, hey, let's sit down together. I really want us to be on the same page. I want to make sure that we're both making progress. And I learned some really cool things from the session I went through that I think is going to really help us to get, you know, on the same path and out of debt faster. Like it might make him a little bit more open to having that conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's worth a shot. It's just a little bit scary thinking about it. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, it's always one of those conversations that like no one is like, yay, let's sit down and talk about money, right? Like it is something that usually is a little bit emotionally loaded and can be hard to bring up or a little bit awkward or uncomfortable. But the reality is that it's something that you guys do have to have a conversation about, right? Like you both are, you know, bringing money in, paying for expenses, you're living in the same home. And like, it's really, really important for you to both have the same vision and know that you're working together towards some common goals, right? And to be supportive of one another in doing that. So come at it from like an area where you're feeling very encouraging and very like optimistic and, you know, hopeful for you both getting on the same page rather than like, I'm doing more and you're not doing enough. But like to say like, these are the goals, like how can we work together to make sure that we're both approaching them the best? I learned some really great new skills that I think are going to help us. Let's make sure that we're working together.
Yeah, it's definitely need to communicate more about it. It's just like the kind of scary thought and kind of something that we've kind of probably been avoiding for quite a while, and both come from divorced families. So I guess it kind of changes our view on money a little bit about combining certain things, and maybe that's why that we've been this way so long. And so it's definitely giving me anxiety talking about it and thinking about something that that I need to do, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing too that like if we were working together still, you could invite him to come to a session and we can like actually sit down together and break down the numbers so that we're doing it together where there is like a third party kind of involved and you don't have to feel like the bad guy, like delivering news. Sometimes it is easier when there's someone that's kind of outside of the relationship where they can see like, okay, I hear what you're saying, instead of like building up this emotional block or getting really defensive, which can happen sometimes in a relationship. So it's definitely something that we can try to do together to kind of help to ease that conversation and hopefully make it easier on you, a little bit less stressful, and to have him just, at least have a little bit of buy-in of, even if it is just like, this is what I'm doing and I want you to understand why I'm doing it and what I'm doing, so that, you kind of understand where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because a lot of these things, like we're preparing for home repairs, but when the house like needs a repair, who typically pays for that? Do you guys split it? Is it like whoever has the money? Like, what do you guys normally do?
I guess it kind of just depends on who went to the store. Like if it's something small, I would pick it up. But then sometimes if it's something that I don't want to buy the wrong thing, then he will pick it up because he knows exactly what we need for it. So I guess that's one thing that maybe he already is maybe paying a little bit more on, like the home repair sort of thing. But I guess it sometimes kind of depends on each time.
Right. Yeah. And so I think like having some sort of consistency, like with these accounts where maybe it is like, maybe you keep the bills that you have, but say like, hey, for home repairs, can you contribute to the savings account monthly? And that's like a new bill that maybe he would pick up since he's usually paying for it anyway. And it'll start to streamline and smooth out that expense for him rather than having the bigger expense when it comes up. Right. So like some of these things I think like could be a way for you guys to divide it so it's not all like right now we have every one of these expenses falling on you, where I imagine a lot of times they're actually expenses that might get alternated, or he may pay more than what you're paying. And so right now we're saying you're going to do all of it. So I'm not 100% positive that this is definitely the worst case scenario. I think that typically your finances probably look better than what we have represented here, because we're saying you're covering all of it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I would just, let's see. So just maybe like a couple of these, I'm going to just put notes, like ones that potentially could get transferred to him. Okay. So not necessarily all of them, right? Like, but just say like, are any of these ones that you would be able to take, that you would feel that you could take responsibility for? Like one of the things that I'll see happening with couples when they do keep their finances separate is that a lot of kind of the anxiety or the stress or the kind of just like lower level distrust or mistrust of finances happens because there's no way for you guys to visually see what's happening. And so sometimes there's this like inner kind of feeling of like, I think they have more than I do, or the feeling of like one of you feeling like you're just barely scraping by and the other has a lot of extra money, right? And so it kind of creates this extra strain around the financial conversation, which you've kind of already illuminated that it's like a stressful conversation for the two of you to have. And sometimes just having this visual and saying like, this is what I'm doing with my money, this is what you're doing with yours, and both of you kind of being able to see it and have that awareness, whether or not you're actually in each other's accounts, but just having something like this where you touch base every now and again can actually help to alleviate a lot of that stress and worry that happens when couples are keeping things separate, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it would be really good for you guys. And maybe you'll sit down and like get his numbers plugged into this and be like, okay, now it's definitely clear that like, I definitely need to keep all of these bills because he really doesn't have enough to contribute to it. Or maybe you'll sit down and he'll automatically be like, wow, you are covering everything. And I definitely can pick up one or two of these other things. Right. But you don't know that until you actually sit down and have the conversation with him, which is why I think it's really important that you guys do it.
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely a lot of miscommunication, and we don't see each other's numbers, and so it's kind of like what we just assume.
Exactly.
Versus, trying to sit down with him and plugging the numbers in and seeing, hey, do I need to keep paying all these, or would you be able maybe to take over a couple of them?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like we have this assumption or we have this idea in mind. And a lot of times like our, kind of idea around money is more of like an opinion, right? We have this opinion that like, oh, Mandy makes more than I do, so my opinion is that she's totally fine paying all of the bills. And if he saw maybe all in one place, everything that was coming out of your bill, you know, your paycheck right now, he might be like, oh, wow, I'm actually not pulling my weight, which he might decide very easily on his own if he could see the numbers without you having to like be the bad guy and say like, I need your help. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
great. I hope that happens.
So it definitely does help, believe me, to like sit down, have the numbers somewhere very clear. It takes away that like matter of opinion that comes to having the conversation around money when it's all very concrete. So I think it definitely would help just to say like, is it a possibility for you to cover any? If it's not, then this is what I've got to work with and I'm fine with that. But like, just to have that conversation and see like maybe what worked when you set it up years ago is not the same as what would work right now. Right. So it's always good to revisit that.
Mm-hmm.
The car payment is a little bit high. I mean, it is one area when I'm looking, you know, things for places that you could cut expenses. Like, how attached to your vehicle are you?
I like it, but I would just be scared of doing something else and then taking a big loss on it because it is a newer vehicle.
Okay. Yeah. Do you owe more than what it's worth right now?
More than likely, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's one that you could check into just to see, you know, if it's worth more than what you owe, it's a possibility that you could get into something that's a little bit less expensive. But if not, then, you know, you're kind of stuck with it. But it's always one area that it's like, that's one place you can save money for sure if you can get a car payment that's a little bit lower.
Do you have any suggestions for that? If I was, if we found out that we wouldn't be taking a big loss on it, is there any recommendations for there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you're looking for a new car, like you're not going to want to get something that's super old that you need to worry about putting lots of repairs. I'm sure you've got like a newer vehicle. It's nice to have the reliability and everything like that. But to just know before you go in what your number is, right? So I would even say like just Google like a loan payment calculator. So if we plug in here, we can like go to a car loan calculator on Google and say like, how much would I be willing to pay? And you can kind of play with the numbers beforehand. Like, what if I took out a $20,000 loan? What would my payment be? So it's always good to just kind of like do that research in advance to kind of see what your dollar amount would be if you're going in shopping for a new vehicle. I do usually say, you know, it's nice to get pre-approval through your bank or through someone else before you go in to deal with the car dealerships. It kind of just gives you a little bit of a better playing field when you go in there and you say, I already have my own financing, because then they kind of have to do their due diligence to like try to get you a better rate and try to beat the rate that you walked in with. So it sometimes can help you to, you know, drive down the interest rate on what you would get for your loan.
And doing that wouldn't really, how would that affect my credit score then?
The pre-approval isn't going to affect your credit score until you actually like really apply for the loan. So you could just get the pre-approval on it. But yeah, I would definitely like not let them be applying for all sorts of things all over the place and running your credit like crazy. So definitely like let them know, hey, you know, you may run it once.
Okay.
But yeah. But that, yeah, it's something that you can research and check into.
Okay.
So, okay, so research that. Again, insurance, I think I put the note on the other one on the insurance, but just to see if you could get like a because is your homeowners on it too, or is that on its own policy also?
The house is on a different policy.
Okay. So that's always one, like I usually recommend people check their insurance once a year just because from company to company, the rates change so much. So if you are, shopping, I would check to the vehicles combined and see what it is if you combine with homeowners. So try to do it all together and then try to do it when they're separate to see. Sometimes you get a discount when you bring it all over together, and other times it is actually cheaper to keep them apart. But I would double check that too. Homeowners can be a big one. Sometimes you can save like $600 a year if you shop that. So it's definitely worth looking on that one. Okay. Okay. So groceries, toiletries. So we talked about that. So this one too, like right now we have you at $800 for the month. And you said that your husband sometimes pays more, you think, or the same amount for this. So if that's the case, that would be $1,600 a month on food and eating out, which seems high to me. What do you think?
I guess it wouldn't be double. It would be, so I mostly pay for the groceries, and then he kind of pays more for when we go out and eat. So I guess it wouldn't be fully double. And the groceries is a total estimate. I don't really know. That's one thing I find is really hard to figure out how to cut my grocery costs. That's one of the spots I know that I need to reduce, but I just don't know how to do that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering, like, if you guys did do the combined spending account where he's putting in a certain amount for eating out and you're putting in a certain amount for groceries, if that would help. And if you could put in potentially less than $800 a month since he's paying for some of the eating out. Like, what do you think? Is that one that we might be able to easily bring down on your part? Like maybe to $600 a month?
Yeah, I think that would be more reasonable. I'm just not sure exactly how to save more for groceries.
Yeah. So, I mean, grocery shopping, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but it all takes a little bit of work, right? So like meal prepping is always a really good thing to like get into meal prepping, planning in advance. So before you go into the grocery store, to have your list with you. I usually recommend that people shop like all of the seasonal stuff when it comes to produce. So it's definitely one area where you go to the grocery store and just look for the things that are on sale for that week and pick up all of it. It tends to be the things that are the freshest anyway, because they're in season and it keeps things changing so that you don't get in so much of a food rut. So I know that's one area that at least personally, I've seen that I've been able to save a lot on produce when I shop that way and just tell my kids like, nope, we're buying strawberries this week and we're not buying grapes or whatever it is, right? They're usually fine with like mixing things up. Mm-hmm. There's obviously always couponing, which is a lot of work. Some people get really, really into it. So it kind of depends on your intensity about doing that. But I mean, tell me, like, when you say you think you're spending too much, like what specifically, like when you say you're spending too much, how so? Like, what does that mean to you?
I feel like we probably buy more groceries than what we end up using, and some of it gets thrown out. We go to the store for certain things and then come out with extras that we didn't plan on buying. Mm-hmm.
So you having this set number for your spending is actually going to help with that kind of automatically as just like a unseen side effect, right? When you actually know, like, I have $600, you're not going to buy all of those accidental things. So it definitely does like make you be kind of forced into a higher state of consciousness around what you're shopping and buying. Like you'll start to look in your cabinet before you go to the grocery store because you know you only have X amount of dollars and you want to make sure that you're not like buying something you already have. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
So yeah, I mean, it is definitely one of the things that I will see time and time again, where it's like, once we put a number in place and start to put lockdown on it, people do just start to make adaptations kind of naturally on their own because they know they want to stick to that number. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what happens with grocery shopping or eating out, like people will really beat themselves up about it and say like, I always overspend there. And it's just because they don't know exactly how much they should be spending there to begin with. So once we figure out what that number is and what it looks like and what's actually workable for you, it becomes a lot easier to like start to get creative, or to say, do I really need that right now? Or I'm actually only buying chicken when it's on sale and I'm going to freeze some so that it lasts longer, or whatever those different things are that you're going to start to kind of be a little bit more savvy and conscious around when you're shopping, because you know you have like a set dollar amount that you have to work within. Whereas right now, you'll say, I'm going to do as good as I can. And doing as good as you can could mean spending $40 or $400. And either way, you're right. Right? Because it's like, by the time you leave, you're like, well, that's as good as I could do. So we're going to change the kind of conversation that you're having with yourself by saying, this is how much you have, and you're going to stick to it.
And just like roughly, what would you say would be a good amount for like 2 people total to spend a month on groceries? Like, what do you think would be more reasonable?
Oh gosh, I have couples that have different lifestyles, and I would say the ranges that I see are maybe for 2 people on the low end. I mean, I guess I've seen some people go down as low as like 600 total for like all of their spending. So all of their cash spending money, groceries, eating out, everything, maybe 600. And that's on the low end. So it's being very conservative, shopping sales, really like not eating out a lot, being very careful with their money. And then I've seen some where, I don't know, on the high end, maybe around 1,600. And those are people that eat out frequently. They have higher incomes, obviously, so they've got a little bit more disposable income to be spending on doing those things. So that would probably be the range that I see.
Mm-hmm. I was just curious.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, anywhere in there is something that's workable, but we want to find what's the most workable for you. And this is one area that like we can spend it eating out or on groceries, or we can try to be a little bit more conscious, and that way you do have a little more money to pay towards debt, So it's like, which thing is the most important to you? Because that's what we want to put into place.
Yeah.
So you think maybe this one, if we cut down your portion to $600 and then your husband can help with some of the others, do you think that's a good representation maybe of what your usual?
Yeah, I think that is.
Okay, so I'm just going to take that out. We're going to say 600. So total cash. So that would be 300. Oops, pardon my typo here. So that's your new number, okay? So either take it out in cash or put into the spending account. And then I think this is one area definitely for you and your husband to kind of talk about, like, how can we come together on it? Or just for him to know, like, hey, I have this amount that I'm going to allow myself. So if we're going out to eat or whatever, like, that's going to be your responsibility, right? Okay, so I'm going to move those out because we just kind of combined it all up above. Okay. So even just with that, we were at least a little bit more positive, right? So every time that we make a change, this number will increase where we can put that towards debt. So this is kind of like what this number is, this little magical number that grows at the bottom. Like, this is the dollar amount that we're going to say, all right now we're paying the minimum, but we're going to make changes. And what we have left at the end of the month is going to be the extra payment that we'll make towards the credit card debt every single month. Okay?
Okay.
So as far as any of these others go, like, what do you think? Are they all accurate? Are there any things that you feel comfortable cutting back on? Like, if we go through line by line, what do you think?
The gifts was accurate for what we actually spend, probably, or what I spend.
Okay.
I don't really see any that I think are, because I had just before this, I had just previously just cut some down when I was had been reading your posts, and I had cut some of the smaller.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just looking, unless maybe for maybe for our pet food, maybe
Okay.
if my husband maybe helped out a little bit more, or the
Yeah. Or like vacation, like who normally pays for that? Do you both normally pay for it or does he pay for that?
we usually split it about 50-50. I pay for my portion and he pays for his portion.
Okay.
Um,
So we'll maybe say the pet one, talk to hubby to see if he can cover that. Um, Costco, do you think that he could cover that one maybe?
yeah, I'll talk to him about that
So
one.
that one, legal and tax fees,
Because we have to file like, yeah, I could talk to him about that one.
potentially. Okay. So, I mean, I think there's definitely a few where if you guys sit down, and like I said, I would come at it just from like a, let's really get clear on things. I want to show you like what the things that I learned. Let's do it for yours so that you can start saving too. Because a lot of these expenses are things that, you know, both of you would be contributing to, like the household expenses and things like that, where it is one that like, you know, equal or divided down the middle does not always mean fair, right? And so we're not always looking for what's fair or whatever, but we're looking for what's going to help you both to be the most productive and make sure that you're on the same page. So again, just like having that conversation where he might very easily be like, I can pick up this one, and this one, and then the rest, if you can keep paying, great. So it just is going to make, I think, the conversation a little bit easier. But even if you could give up like a few of these, you know, it's like if he could cover the internet and cover the pets, even if it's just like two things. Like now we have almost $300 extra every month that we can start making progress with on the credit cards, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that that's a valuable conversation for you to have, just to see if you guys can get on the same page. So once we get all of this in place, I kind of want to show you what we typically will do with clients to help them to like really keep things very organized and start to track things. So this is just an example to show you what I'm talking about. So it's not your numbers, but it'll give you the idea of kind of like how to start to budget in a different way and be able to really, really see what's happening. So this is what we talked about, like your paycheck would come in, green is your cash. So your cash comes out for your day-to-day spending or moves to your spending account. We've got all of the bills that would be due in that pay period listed right below it, right? So we have everything listed out, so it's very visual, easy to see it. Then the next column represents the next pay period. So yours would actually look very similar to this. So every column would represent every 2-week pay period for you. So again, the check comes in, cash comes out, all of the bills that are due in the next 2 weeks are listed below. And at the end of the month would be all of your savings accounts in orange where you would move that money into savings. Okay. So the nice thing is that like once we get everything super clear like this and it is so visual, like we can look ahead and like May looks the same as April and June looks the same as May. And oh, there's July and we have a third paycheck where we've got extra money. And we can easily see like, this is what we have extra that we get to work with. So there's an extra $1,390 now that can go towards debt that month, right? So it becomes very, very consistent, very systematic, and like super, super simple to keep track of things and kind of really see into the future with a lot of good dependability. You can like really kind of depend and plan on what you're actually seeing as represented here. The other cool thing that I really love about this is that you can use it as a tool to really like test your financial choices before you make them. Okay. So what I mean by this is like in this example, this person has one credit card that they're paying off. So it's very similar to your scenario. One Capital One, let's say that she has a balance of $600. And if she's looking at her checking account, she can say like, wow, I have $850 left. All of my bills have been paid. Like, I'm so sick of that credit card. I'm going to pay it off. Pay off credit card minus $600. So woohoo, like credit card's paid off. Good news. Like probably goes and has a pedicure done because she's like so stinking excited that she got her credit card paid off, right? So 2 weeks later though, look what happens. In the negative, right? And then 6 weeks later, look what happens again. so oftentimes in life, like we'll be going along and we're like, everything's going great. And then all of a sudden we're like, what the heck is happening? I feel like I'm totally broke. I'm stressed. I'm running out of money. I don't know what's going on. Like I thought I was doing so good. And we'll start to really beat ourselves up about things. And it might not be anything that we're doing right now. It might have been something that like happened 2 months before that we've already totally forgotten about. Right. And so we kind of like keep feeling the effects of that and feeling the mental anguish over it for months down the road, which is why this is like such a powerful tool to be able to really test that out, see what's going on, and be able to say like, well, what if I only do $300? How is $300 going to impact things? Okay, I'll actually be okay if I do that. Right. So we can know with confidence before we make any financial decision exactly how it's going to impact the like bigger picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So you will get an email that comes after the Eureka session, Mandy, that's going to have a template that will show you how to build this out. Or if you do want to continue with coaching, this is something that we'll build for you. And then we'll walk you through, every single step of how to actually use it and everything along the way. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So how are you feeling about things now that we've kind of gone through this? Like, are you feeling like this is something that you can start to implement, or is it giving you some better clarity about where things are at?
It definitely gave me clarity. The feeling a little bit anxious, just seeing the numbers and stuff. I know that I have some conversations that I need to have, but at least I think it's good getting everything all into one document and seeing it, because that was something it was like putting everything in one spot, even just the awareness of doing it for the first spreadsheet. Yeah. And then now going through and updating to make some of the numbers more accurate, it's better. I feel a little bit anxious maybe making some of the changes. I feel like it's definitely a lot. I do feel a lot more hopeful about it.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I feel like your picture looks really good. I know that you were like really feeling uncertain and a little bit stressed when we started. It's like right now, like I said, everything that we have on here is like kind of the worst case scenario. It's assuming that you are paying all of it yourself, that your husband's not going to be able to pitch in for anything. It's assuming that you're not having any bonuses or any extra money along the way, which we know for sure, at least twice a year, you're going to have an extra $1,900, right? So that's going to be extra money that we now know can actually be used to move your finances ahead, right? So we can definitely make progress with that. I just had a thought. The one other thing that I would say right now, while you're working on getting out of debt, that these two things probably can stop for a little while. Okay. So they were something that I was seeing earlier. Like if you have $2,000 in this emergency fund, that's great. Like, cause now you don't have to touch it because we're saving for all the other things along the way. So I would say leave it where it's at. And then you can add $50 to start using towards paying off debt. And even the same with the IRA, at least temporarily, to pause what you're putting in there, because you're not earning 20% on the money that's going into your IRA right now, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to get this like paid off as fast as possible so that you can turn around and start using like more of that money to start putting into investments as soon as this is gone, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say to pause that for right now. So I'm going to say pause for right now. And then same here. Stop for now. And eventually, like, yeah, you can build up your emergency fund to be a little bit higher if you want it to be. But for right now, like, let's focus on hitting that debt with a vengeance, right? So now we've got $300, and that's without even having that conversation with your husband about helping with some of the other things. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you definitely are in a good position to start making progress. Things are looking really good. So I'm hearing like part of your worries is like just making sure that you do it and don't get overwhelmed, right? Mm-hmm. What other challenges do you see in actually implementing things?
Maybe just going through and like creating some of the accounts, maybe changing around when the bills are, and just kind of maybe getting some of the expenses reduced, some of the insurances.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Because those are things that I think you can probably for sure save some money on. Um, are you open to having a conversation right now about like what it would look like going forward to kind of make sure that I can help you to get all of those things done along the way?
Yeah, I would be open to it. I'm not sure how I can make it happen, but I'm open to
Sure.
thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's kind of look at that. So essentially, going forward, if we were to begin working together, like we would begin right away with getting everything super, super locked in and dialed in for you. So I know that's definitely one of the challenges early on is just the like, where do I actually start from right now? Where do I begin getting all of this done? So I would kind of hold your hand through that whole process. So we would build out your budget for you, and start actually like helping you to make sure like week to week the accounts are getting opened and updated. We'll kind of give you the assignment or even help you and go through it together when we meet. If you're having trouble with it, we can help with that, to make sure that all of those changes are happening right away. We do have a few different options for you. And I know obviously like cost is always a big factor, right? So I'm not going to lie, it's an investment. I think going forward, possibly our 4-month coaching program would be great for you because it will help to like get you over that initial hump of like just having some of the overwhelm and actually making sure that everything gets really implemented and started along the way, and having that accountability along the way with you to make sure that it's really happening. We could even have your husband kind of join us for some of it if he's open to it, where he comes in just to see what the plan is, to do some goal setting, to talk about like helping you guys get on the same page as far as what are your values, what is the vision that the two of you have together for your finances, and how can we make sure that you're working together towards achieving those. So even though we might not necessarily be like diving into all of his expenses and things, we can get you starting to have some of those really valuable conversations that are important for you as a couple to make sure that you're always moving ahead together. So let's see, let me pull up my coaching package. So we started down here with the Eureka Session. The program that I was talking about is this one, the Goals and Dreams, which is $688 a month for the 4 months. Like I said, it's definitely a big investment. So it's something that you would have to think about. You don't have to decide anything right now. The other option you could get started with is the first month, where we would build out the budget for you and start to make sure that we get you like in the habit and knowing what to do and get that like first kind of hurdle over with. And then you could always decide after that if you do want to continue with additional coaching at that point.
Okay.
What are you thinking right now about those?
I think it would be great. I'm just scared of how much it'll cost and being able to afford it and fit it in.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I know it's a huge expense. I kind of like laugh a little bit because I'm talking to people about getting out of debt, and a lot of times they're putting this on a credit card to pay for it, and it seems very counterintuitive. So it's, it's something that you are going to have to sleep on and maybe discuss with your husband or think about yourself to see where you're at. I absolutely know that like this investment is something that, it's like you're going into the wilderness, right? And it's kind of down this new road. It's something that you haven't done before. And it can be really scary to kind of enter into that wilderness all by yourself. And I'm kind of like your guide, right? Where I've been in the forest before. I know the correct trails to take. I know how to like get across the rapids and like fight off the bear because I've done it. And so it's something where, you definitely can get through it a lot faster and a lot easier having that guidance along the way with someone that's been experienced and been through it. But I know it's scary. I know it's a big investment. But I definitely know that it will help you to get through it, a lot faster and with more confidence, and to start really moving into a new direction with the way that you handle your money.
Yeah, I think it would be great. I'm just trying to think, because if it's $688 a month and I'm at about I think 277 a month, and then depending on, like, it still feels like it would be a little bit of a stretch even if I got some reduced, and even if my husband took on a few more. So I'm just, I would love to, but I'm just not sure how I can make that happen.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe until you talk to your husband, you're not going to have a lot of confidence around doing that. I mean, the foundation one might be a good option for you just to start with, so that, you know, like, we can get some progress working. You can talk to your husband. We can bring him into the session to see like what things you guys might be able to do together. And then at that point, we can see if there's, you know, something going forward as far as some accountability that might be a little bit more cost affordable for you.
And I'm just trying to think how I would come up with the $1,250 at first.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, you could, there's so many options, you know, it's like, gosh, you could sell something that you have, you could have a garage sale, you could just save for 4 months if you try doing some of it on your own, and then say like, I'm really ready to dive in, because you've got enough money to be able to do that. I've definitely had some clients that they save for a couple months and then they come back when they've saved up the money for it. So that's always an option for you also. Because I think we definitely put together like enough things in place right now that you could start making some of the groundwork and then say, now I'm like really ready to like dive in and make sure I'm doing everything correctly and as good as I possibly can, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's enough options. I think you should sleep on it and have that conversation with your husband, because chatting with him about things is probably going to change your perspective about like what you can and can't do, like for everything, right? Because there's still kind of that like gray area out there with what you're going to be responsible for and what he might be able to help with. So I do think that's going to be a really important thing for you to start with. Let's maybe touch base in a couple of days or next week or something after, like, how long do you think you'll need to have a conversation with him and maybe get some of it ironed out?
Maybe a few days.
A few days. So we can look at my calendar and we'll choose something for next week.
Okay.
And get that on the calendar to just touch base, and we'll have just like a quick 15-minute phone call just to see where you guys are at with things. What changes you've made. You can always update it on this worksheet, because I'll share it to you. And then if you wind up, you know, having that conversation with him where he's taking a few things, I can even hop in just to see what changes you've made, to see what those updates are. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Do you have any other questions before we wrap things up?
I think that's most of the questions that I have.
Okay. Yeah. You're feeling a little bit better?
I am. I'm feeling
good.
Kind of a mix of emotions right now. I'm feeling hope, but then at the same time, just knowing about kind of some conversations and lots of big changes. And so I'm kind of just feeling kind of good, but
yeah, that's normal. That's normal. Don't worry, you'll get through it. So I will send over the worksheet with all of the notes and changes that we made on it. And then there's also going to be another email that comes that just kind of like recaps the 3 different expenses, how to handle those. And it'll come with the tutorial of how to build out the budget. So if it is something that you want to try and just get started on yourself initially, you're going to have all the tools there that you need to begin to do it. And then if you do say like, I really need the accountability, or I really do need someone to like walk me through it and make sure that I make these changes and make it happen, then we can kind of have a conversation again about like, what things can we do to make sure that you're putting away to save for it? Or if we have to put it on a credit card, like what's going to be our method for tackling that credit card and making sure it gets paid off once you've made, you know, the investment in really learning how to do it. Okay. All right. Well, it was so great meeting you today, and I'm super excited to get to chat in a week or so and see how that conversation with your husband goes. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
You're so welcome. I'll talk to you later. Okay, Mandy?
That sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.